Okay, today's lesson is about um, learning stuff about making. We're going to look at one of the most important things to start with is to look at how we describe materials that we use and how we describe the properties of what makes them do what they do and why we choose them to make certain products. This will all become clear shortly. Um, but ideally, we'd be in the workshop. We'd be looking at ways to make things, as well as all the theory that goes around it. So we're going to understand the need for using different materials when making products. We're going to be able to identify different materials in existing products. We're going to explain the common words used to describe materials properties. We're also going to distinguish different properties needed for different products and the reasons why we might choose different materials for those different things. Okay, so first thing we need to know about key terms is when designers create products, they have to select a material that best suits the job that it has to do. So we can agree that on the screen on the slideshow there are 3 chairs. They're all for the same core purpose of sitting down on, but they're all made of different materials. And they also have different designs, and they've been designed, and the designers chose different materials for the reason that they're not all the same because they have different requirements. They have different jobs within what to do. So if we look at the wooden chair down the bottom that's with the table, that for me that looks like a chair that comes from IKEA. It looks like a kind of chair that has to be put together by the people that buy it. It looks like a chair that might be used by children. Looks like a chair that's mass produced and needs to be lots of them need to be made. So therefore, that designer's chosen wood because it's easy to do those things with. It's easy to flat pack it, to box it up, and then send it home with the person who's buying it, so they can then put that together with their own tools at home. The plastic chair in the middle is for me, it looks like a school chair. It looks like it's highly mass produced, so they've got to be able to produce lots and lots of them. And plastic is a really good material to do that with. It looks like it's easy to wipe clean because obviously schools sometimes there are spillages. Sometimes students might write on the chairs, so they've got to be easy to kind of easy to wipe clean, all those sorts of things, and also they need to be just really cheap to produce. And plastic is really cheap to mass produce with because of the properties that it has. The chair at the top is made out of metal, particular type of metal called aluminium, and we're going to talk about this one today in the next slide. We're going to analyze this chair and try and work out what properties or what things that it needs to do and how that might influence the designer's choice of material for this particular chair. So in my head, we're going to look at this and we're going to write some analysis for this on the worksheet that you've got. So imagine, where might you find this chair? I'm thinking it might be outside. So it's what functions does each chair have? So we think about material that's used. So the material for this is aluminium. So I think this chair might go outside a cafe somewhere, maybe, is what I'm thinking. I see them outside in cafes and garden centres and things like that, maybe Costa. And we think about what it is. So we're going to look very briefly at an example. So the chair is made from aluminium. I would write that down because I know that's aluminium. You might take a good guess at what it might be, but that is the material that it's actually made from. Now, I know that this chair has to do certain things that other chairs don't. So I know it needs to go outside. I know that it needs to be lightweight. So when the person has to move it around or stack them up at the end of the day. So I'm going to write down as my example, the chair needs to be lightweight so that it's easy to move around. This is because they may cause strain or injury if they were too heavy. Okay, so that designer has chosen aluminium because aluminium is lightweight. It's strong, so it can hold someone's weight. Because a chair that doesn't hold someone's weight is pointless, and they wouldn't do that. but it allows that chair to be easy to pick up, easy to stack. And it's not about the shape that makes it easy to stack, because that's part of the actual design, but the material choice is what we're talking about now. The choice of material allows it to be easy to pick up. Now, what I like to do for task 1 is to use the ideas below. You might have your own ideas. So what if food spills on them? What about why did that designer choose aluminium? What can you do to aluminium that makes it that means that if food spills on it, it's not a problem? What might happen if it falls over? What happens to that chair? It's been designed in such a way that maybe it's the material choice means that it doesn't break so easily. So you might want to write about that. Ones that I haven't put on here, you might think about actually it goes outside. So what might the material need to be? What properties might it need to have for that particular reason? So, and I leave you now to go and complete task 1. Write at least 2 sentences, 2 statements rather, might be more than 1 sentence for each. Write down what property and what sort of requirements this metal chair has, and the reason and the reason why that's an important thing to consider. Okay, do that, and then we will continue in a moment. Now that we looked at analyzing a product based on the properties that the material needs to have to be a successful product for that particular type of situation that you're using it in, we're now going to look at the actual key terminology, the key words that we use to describe the properties, the mechanical properties of those materials. So on the screen, you can see there are 8 different meanings, definitions, and what I want you to do. The answers will come up later, but what I want you to do is you will know a lot of these words already. The problem is the way we use those words is sometimes not done as technically as we should do, or we don't use them in the correct way. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and guess what they might be. So you got your 8 different ones. You've got difficult to scratch or indent, high mass compared to its volume, does not wear down easily, absorbs shocks without breaking, easy to deform in shape, returns to its original shape after being stretched, easy to draw out into a thinner section of material, and allows light to go through it. Now, I would hope that 4 of those you would know already. 4 of those words are familiar to you. You might not realize they're the words, but they are. I'd say another 2 or 3 you might know. You might be aware of these, depending on how big your vocabulary is. One of them is really quite difficult and may well be a completely new word to you. So at some point you will learn a new word. If you don't, it's good on you for having a good vocab. So see what you can guess from here, and then have a look at the next slide. The next slide will show you some clues. So what we try and do is guess the ones we can, and then see how we go on. Now, sometimes people get confused. You're not trying to guess a material. You're trying to guess the word that describes this property. So I wouldn't say difficult to scratch or indent. I wouldn't say steel, because that's a material, that's not a property. Okay, so have a go, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So here are some clues. So it's difficult to scratch or indent. A material like steel would be difficult to scratch or indent, as it is what? And then try and get the word. And you can read the rest of the clues yourself to try and get an idea of what those words might be. Answers are on the next page, so don't move on until you've tested yourself as much as you can. And here are our answers. Difficult to scratch or indent is hardness. Density is high mass compared to its volume. Durability is something that doesn't wear down easily, so something's durable. Toughness is if you can hit something and it doesn't break, so it absorbs shocks without breaking. Malleability or plasticity is easy to form in shape, so it's material that can be molded into different shapes easily. And then elasticity is something that returns to its original shape after being stretched. Ductility, that's the tricky one that you may not have known. Easy to draw out into a thinner section of material, so you can take a piece of metal, heat it up, and then you can take a block of metal and draw it out, make it thinner and longer, so it can be a knife or a piece of wire or whatever it might be. So that's ductility. And then the last one is transparency, which means the material allows light to go through it. Okay, so that's your main keywords. Make sure they're down on your sheet and make sure you got it. You understand why they're the correct words. Final task is we're going to look at some examples. So you might know these words now, but until you can put them into some kind of context, some kind of real world context, you're not really going to be able to use them effectively. So we've got 8 examples on here on the screen, and we're going to look at trying to work out, if we were a designer, what would be the most important property to look for when you start designing this product. What thing would you look for in the material that you're going to choose? So I'm going to do the first one for you, so you know what layout to use and how to sort it out. So flooring in a school corridor. Now, you can choose any of the words. There are multiple correct answers to these questions, these examples that we've got on the screen. What I would say is choose what you think is obvious to you, and the only reason it's right is because you can explain it properly. Okay, so you might be able to write down durability, you might be able to write down hardness, but you're not going to get the right answer or any marks for that answer until you can really explain your choice. Okay, so here we go. So my example here is flooring in a school corridor. Then I would like you to write down your keyword that you think is really important, and I've put down durability. And I think this is important because, and I've highlighted that in blue because that's like, you have to have your because, there's got to be a keyword in there. You've got to have to, that's how you start your explanation. A school floor has many people walking over it daily, and it needs to not wear down very easily. Okay, so I've explained, I've said what happens, and I've highlighted that section in green where it says not wear down very easily, because that's the meaning, that's the definition of durability. So when you write your ones, it's really important. You need to try and put the meaning, the definition of the keyword that you've chosen into your explanation, because that really draws your knowledge and you're explaining why that's relevant. It also makes sure that you're not going off topic. Now, the bit that's highlighted in red is how to get extra credit. So you'd need to think of the extra reason why it's important. So I've said that this is so that it might last longer and not need replacing. So that's why, because you have so many people walking over that school floor, you don't want to replace the floor every year. So it needs to be durable, so you can replace it every 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And that's why it's important. Okay, so that's my example. Then what you now need to do is to complete all of the other 7 on your sheet, and that's pretty much the lesson. So here we go: car windscreen, school desk, hair tie, trainer sole, blue tack, doorstop, knife blade. What is the most important keyword that we've learned today that you need to consider? There are multiple correct answers. Choose the one you want, explain it, make sure you put your definition of the keyword that you've chosen into your answer, because it will ground your answer into what you need to say.